So let's begin by saluting our flag. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated. And you all look wonderful. Beautiful women, handsome men. Good times. So good evening, everyone. I'm Dan Holohan, the president of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York. Welcome to the Society's 226th consecutive commemoration of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. We are especially honored to have with us this evening Monsieur Jérôme Henry, Deputy Consul, French Consulate in New York, who will deliver the Patriotic Address. On this special patriotic occasion, we remember the courage, integrity, and sacrifice of the men who were brave enough to declare their independence in writing while under the domination of a ruling monarch. We are pleased to have you join us as we gather once again to hear the reading of this great document. The General Society has honored this document by reading it aloud to the citizens of every generation since 1793. I thought it would be appropriate this evening to revisit the celebration that took place in this beautiful room 75 years ago. It was June 5th, 1944, the night before the Normandy invasion. Our speaker that evening was the Honorable Ferdinand Pecora, Justice of the Supreme Court of the State of New York. This is a small portion of what he had to say to those we now know as the greatest generation. He begins by quoting that great document. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." And then Justice Pecora said, "Eliminate those words from the Declaration of Independence, and it would be, at most, a bitter indictment of tyranny for its crimes of despotism. But with their inclusion, the document becomes immortal, as probably the profoundest statement of the creed of democracy." June 5th, 1944. Justice Pecora did not know what would come with the dawn. No one in this room did. But he concluded his address that night by saying, "By their unfaltering devotion and their unbounded sacrifice, our gallant daughters and sons are proving that democracy is worth dying for. Inspired by their patriotism and with a steadfast love for the ideals of our democracy, let us keep faith with those who now sleep under the little white cross abroad. And as we preserve their memory tonight, let us too pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to preserve America forever as the sweet land of liberty." With our distinguished speaker here this evening, I believe that tonight's celebration, 75 years later, after the Normandy invasion, will be another notable and very memorable occasion as we continue to honor those who made our liberty possible. Thank you for being here. And I would like to now introduce Victoria Dengel, Executive Director of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York. Victoria.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to you. And thank you to all of you who have come back, those who are returning for this celebration and those who are new to this celebration of our great country. And I would like to bring to the podium Michelle Delafave, who will sing the Star-Spangled Banner. And Michelle, for those of you not familiar with her, toured with Bob Hope on USO tours in Vietnam. And she has provided unwavering support for the veterans community since then. And she is a beloved person, and she's now, tonight, sworn in as a member of the General Society and a sister. So, Michelle, please come.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight are the ramparts we watched, we're so gallantly streaming, and the rockets flew, the bombs bursting in air, they flew through the night, that our flag was still there. Say, does that Star-Spangled Banner yet wave over the land of the free and the
Michelle, thank you. That was so beautiful. Your singing is such a gift to all of us, so thank you, Michelle. We are so delighted to have here tonight Jérôme Henry, Deputy Consul of the Consulate General of France in New York, to deliver the Patriotic Address. America's long-standing close friendship with France is rooted in the shared ideals of the French and American revolutions. The French-American relationship has evolved greatly from the bonds established more than 2 centuries ago. France was, of course, the first ally of the new United States. The 1778 treaty and military support proved decisive in the American victory over Britain in the American Revolutionary War. From the Battle of Yorktown to the invasion of Normandy, the French-American alliance has grown stronger and stronger throughout the years. Jérôme Henry was born near Paris in 1963. He obtained a Master's of Philosophy at the Sorbonne University in 1987 and joined the French Foreign Service in 1989. Since then, he has served in New York, Pretoria, Vancouver, Bangkok, Boston, and New York, as well as several positions in Paris in between. He has been Deputy Counsel, Head of Chancery in New York since September 2017. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Jérôme Henry.
Hello, everybody. I was asked to make a speech between 5 and 10 minutes, so if it's longer than 10 minutes, let me know. Dear Colonel Terry Holliday, dear President Daniel Holohan, dear Board of Governors, dear friends, it is an honor and a pleasure to be here tonight to commemorate the signing of the American Declaration of Independence with the Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. The signing of the Declaration is the defining moment of American history and a pivotal event for the world, since it was the first time a nation gave formal recognition to the idea that their citizens had a natural right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The signing of the Declaration has great significance for France as well, since it marks the beginning of a friendship between our two nations that allowed us to promote liberty and democracy throughout the world. First, I would like to acknowledge the Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. The Society has a long and venerable history, since it was founded just a few years after the American Revolution. For more than 200 years, it has provided important public services to the residents of New York City, first by operating one of the city's earliest free schools, then by providing training to skilled workers who might not otherwise be able to gain the technical competency they need in a rapidly changing environment. Lastly, it has a fine library and a wonderful lecture series that pay tribute to the skill of master artisans, a form of expertise that, in my humble opinion, doesn't receive enough attention. I should also say that the Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen is a prime example of the numerous civic associations that the French thinker and politician Alexis de Tocqueville saw when he traveled to the United States in the early 19th century. For him, these groups were critical to the well-being of a democracy because they gave a voice to individuals who otherwise might have been neglected by the majority, and because they helped counteract the potential for isolation in a society that had eliminated the social forms of stratification and identification that had prevailed before. So as a society that was founded around the time of the American Revolution, and as a society that helped the American democracy flourish in its early years, it is very fitting that the Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen holds a celebration for the signing of the Declaration of Independence every year. As a representative of France, I am delighted to be part of this event. As you know, France was an early supporter of the American Revolution. It started in 1775 with shipping supplies to the Continental Army. 3 years later, the French and Americans signed an alliance treaty, which led France to make further shipment of money and military supplies to the US. Back in France at that time, the general public and many young French aristocrats were enthusiastic about America's war of liberation. They understood that it was carrying forward the ideas of the Enlightenment, such as the then radical notion that the source of power in a modern state, lies in its people, the people being actually the sovereign. Some young French aristocrats were so inspired by the American Revolution that they risked their life to join the cause. I'm thinking, of course, of Marquis de Lafayette, who sailed to the newly declared United States in 1777. And when he passed away in 1834, the US Congress enacted a resolution to honor, quote, the friend of the United States, the friends of Washington, and the friend of liberty. As I said earlier, the friendship that took root between France and the United States during the War of Independence was the beginning of a long alliance between our two countries. Many historians believe that the American Revolution was a spark for the French Revolution, which erupted just 5 years later. And twice in the 20th century, the United States came to the help of France. In 1917, President Wilson framed America's entry into the war as a means to support the free people of Europe. He sent 2 million Americans over the Atlantic, which helped the tired and demoralized French army make the final effort they needed to defeat the Germans and turn the tide of the war. 20 years later, the United States deployed its unprecedented military might to support the Allied forces again, as the democracies of Europe were being defeated and occupied by Nazi Germany. In fact, this year marks the 75th anniversary of D-Day. On June 6, 1944, more than 150,000 Americans, together with thousands of British and Canadian troops, many of whom were just 17, 18, and 19 years old, crossed the English Channel in the middle of the night and landed on Normandy's beaches to begin the liberation of German-occupied France. The D-Day landing marked the beginning of the Allied victory on the Western Front. Thousands of the young men who carried through this mission paid the ultimate price. The sacrifice, the generosity of spirit, the bravery of these young men, and the hundreds of thousands of men and women who fought for liberty during World War II and didn't make it back from the battlefield is awe-inspiring to this day. France will never forget, and it will never forget that it owes them its freedom. But as French President Emmanuel Macron pointed out during the D-Day celebration in Normandy in the company of US President Donald Trump this past June, we need to be more than just grateful for the sacrifice of this great man. We need to be worthy of that sacrifice, the legacy of peace as they left it, and the promise of Normandy. To be worthy of that promise, we need to continue to fight for democracy and liberty by strengthening the alliances between free people, by nourishing the attitudes that allow liberty and democracy to flourish, by reinforcing the international institutions that allow the different people of the world to resolve their differences peacefully, and by continuing to enhance the long-standing alliance between France and the United States, which is rooted in our country's shared love of liberty and democracy. Thank you.
Jerome Henri, we'd just like to make a presentation to you on behalf of the Society. Thank you, Genesis. Okay. On behalf of the General Society of on behalf of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York, founded 1785, we express our gratitude to Jerome Henri, Deputy Consul of the French Consulate in New York, for his participation in the annual celebration of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which, as many of you have read, we've been doing this without fail since 1793. So thank you. And thank you for your beautiful speech. And now I'd like to invite Michelle to sing God Bless America. Thank you.
From above.
God bless America. Michelle, thank you. That was so beautiful. It brings tears to my eyes every time you sing. And I look at my friend Jennifer Rivera, 26 years in the Army, sitting right here and getting emotional. It's really so moving and so beautiful. I'm so blessed to be in this wonderful country. So, and with that in mind, we are on to the Banjo Rascals. How long have you been doing this with us?
We're 1776? No. We have it down as around 1972. We have played here consecutively.
Wow, wow.
There was a break for 1 year. We didn't make it for some reason.
Amazing. And I just love saying it. I really look forward to when we can say the Banjo Rascals are coming back. So on that note, if you could play musical selections, thank you. Not
a problem, Victoria. And to us, this is a special event that we come to play. Banjos are synonymous with the American flag in our country. It's one of the two instruments that are native to America, the banjo and the sousaphone. But more than that, when we come here, and my wife is going to kill me when I say this, but it gives us a remembrance for my wife's Uncle Joe, who led the charge on Omaha Beach that got the surge that broke the back of the Germans to get through. That day he won the Bronze Star, the Silver Star, and a whole bunch of other medals. There you were. So for Uncle Joe, this whole medley was going to be for you. And what we'd like to do is we're going to salute every branch of the United States. And when we get to your branch, if you served in that branch, please stand so we can honor you. We're going to start you off with the song for the U.S. Air Force. Off we go into the wild blue yonder. Right on it. 2, 3, 4.
We go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder. Adam boys, give her the gun. Down we dive, spouting our flame from under. Off with one heck of a roar. We live in fame, go down in flame. Hey, nothing will stop the Army Air Force.
The United States Navy.
Navy down the field, sails set to the sky. We'll never change our course. Go Army, you steer shy. Roll up the score, Navy, anchors away. Sail down the field, Navy, and sink the Army gray.
The United States Marine Corps. Everyone now, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles on the land and on the sea. first to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine. The U.S. Army. Over hill, over dale, we will hit the dusty trail, and those caissons go rolling along. Down the march, eat about, watch those flagging soldiers shout, as those caissons go rolling along. For it's high, high here, field artillery, shout out your numbers loud and strong. 3, 4, wherever you go, you shall always know that those caissons rolling along. That those caissons go rolling along. United States Coast Guard.
So here's the Coast Guard marching song. We sing on land or sea, through surf and storm and howling gale. How shall our purpose be? Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame, our glory too. To fight, to save, or fight to die. I, Coast Guard, we are for you.
Thank you for all those who gave and who served our country so well. Thank you for our freedom.
And now I would like to bring to the podium past President Tom Sakayan. Tom served as our president in 1998, and he has been reading the Declaration of Independence. Tom, how?
3 weeks.
Oh, 3 weeks? No. For decades. So, Tom, thank you.
Can we have some light here? I can't see. Oh. That's all right. No, it'll work. Boy. Look at all those people. Okay, here we go. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected with them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind require that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to abolish it or to alter it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present king of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this fact, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new officers and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat their substance. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation for quartering large bodies of troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial for punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun, with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous of ages and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Okay. Here we go.
Thank you so much, Tom. It was wonderful as always. And you say you get angry every year. We love to hear the anger in your voice. So it's so beautiful. You did a wonderful job as always. And as we look back and with gratitude for so much that has come before us, and may we move ahead with grateful hearts for all that is to come in the United States of America. God bless America. And on that note, I would like to bring up Michelle to sing America the Beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. God shed His grace on thee, and crowned by good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, that more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, God shed His grace on thee, and all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That was beautiful. As we conclude, as always, Michelle, thank you. And as we go to dine together, I just want to say a thank you especially to our veterans who are here tonight, and our military. You are the superheroes of our country, and we love you. And I know that personally, I think of you and your service every single day. Not a day goes by that I don't look at the American flag and think of our military and our veterans. So thank you. For without you, we would have nothing. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you to each and every one of you who made it here to celebrate with us, and let the celebration continue. And God willing, may same time next year. And thank you. Bye.
smiling, the whole world smiles with you. When you're laughing, the sun comes shining through. When you're crying, oh, you bring on the rain, so stop that sighing, then be